Now, this is version 2 with added extras of a story for Margo and Cooper and Romy. Margo's 3.5 and Cooper is 2.5 and Penny and Romy is 1. And Margo wanted a story which had in it dancing and painting. And Cooper wanted vegetable planting and he wanted a digger. And Romy just wanted copying and eating. It went like this. Once upon a time, a long time ago, not so far away, Princess Romy, Prince Cooper, and Princess Margo lived in a castle on the top of a cliff near the sea, with a big garden at the back, walled off against the sea winds. And Cooper spent all his days out in the garden. He liked being in the garden, especially as they had a gardener who'd spent a lot of time with him explaining things about carrots and potatoes and cabbages. And Cooper really liked that because it meant he could drive his digger around the garden and he could dig holes for the gardener, he could make trenches to plant the potatoes in, and he had a wonderful time. Margo didn't like getting dirty in the garden. She'd much rather be inside, where she could do her painting or she could practice her dancing. And she hoped to go to tap classes or to ballet. And she liked watching the dancing when it happened on the television. Meanwhile, Romy tried copying them both, but she ended up licking the ends of the paint brushes or putting things in her mouth or going outside and eating slugs or bits of dirt or raw potatoes, and it didn't really work very well. Mum would say, "Aren't you watching what she's doing?" Well, one day, Cooper was outside driving his digger when suddenly there was a clanking noise, and when he looked down, his digger had unearthed something with a shiny spot. He went round to the front and he lifted it out, and it was a stone. Well, I thought it might be a stone. Maybe there was a coin inside, or maybe there was a jewel, because it sparkled in the sunshine. But it was covered in horrible lots of dirt. So he raced inside, saying, "Margo, Margo, look at this. I've found something shiny. I've dug it up with my digger." Margo said, "What is it?" Romy said, "Oh, can I eat it?" He said, "No, you can't eat it. It's hard. It's like a stone. It's shiny. Well, let's clean it off under a tap." So they cleaned it off under the tap, and it was a shiny stone, but not like any other stone you might have seen. "Well, let's polish it," said Margo. So they got some soft cloth and they started to scrub it hard. Well, as they scrubbed it hard, something began to happen. The stone began to get bigger and bigger and bigger until it was too heavy to carry and they had to put it down. And then they noticed it wasn't the stone that was getting bigger, it was them who was getting smaller. Then they found themselves outside the doors of a great big house. The doors were coloured pink, and there's a great big B over the top of the doors. B for B. What could begin with B? Brown, or Barbie, or buns? They didn't know. They knocked on the door, but there was no reply. So they pushed the door open. It wasn't locked. And they went inside. And the more they looked around, the more they saw that all the furniture seemed to be made of plastic. And there were little bits and pieces everywhere, and there was bits of food, but it was made of plastic as well. They looked up at the walls, and they were made of plastic. "Well, this is strange," they said. Margo said, I'm going exploring. Romy said, I'm copying you. Cooper said, I'm going outside. I saw a red and green car. It looked just like my toy car, just at the side. So he went outside, climbed into the red and green car, and it started. And he drove it round and round the castle happily, while Margo and Romy explored. Well, they explored the whole of the place, and she said, well, there's some paper here and some paints. And so she painted some pictures, got some blue tack and blue tacked them to the wall, the doll's of the house, the doll's house. And then she went out and flagged down Cooper and said, Cooper, it's time we went home. I'm getting hungry. There's no food to eat here. Romy said, I'm hungry too. I feel like eating. And Cooper stopped his car and they went to the great big stone. They got their cloth and they scrubbed hard. And as they scrubbed hard, the stone got smaller and smaller and they got bigger and bigger. And the house got smaller and smaller until it became a lovely pink doll's house with a B across the top of the door. And as Margo looked inside, she saw there were tiny pictures blue tacked to the wall. She thought, I know how they got there, and now so do you. And Cooper saw the red and green car. He picked it up in his hand and he thought, I wonder how I can make it go. Do you think they'll have another adventure? Do you think the stone might make them small somewhere else? Send in your ideas.